Hi everyone, Jane here. Thank you for watching today and welcome to you all. Today I thought I would have another go at using the Dina Wakley watercolour journal. This is her latest journal that she's brought out. It has 300 GSM watercolour paper in it and it measures 6 inches by 9 inches, and because it is watercolour paper I thought I would start off with some watercolour. I had a sort of idea in my head what I wanted to do today, but I really didn't know how it was going to turn out, so I decided to start off just by adding lots of watercolour. So I'm using my tin of watercolours here. They are a mixture of 3 brands in this watercolour tin. I've got Daniel Smith, Core and Rose Gallery. So I won't name all the colours because, to be honest, all I was doing was going in and picking out the greens. So the greens came from across all the different brands and I was just trying to go for different sort of tones, so that I started with a really light, it was a green gold, and then I went into for different greens above and below. And I was sort of trying to create a landscape sort of look, but I wasn't trying to be specific. I wanted to be quite flowy with my strokes, and to do that as well I was using some of the Princeton Neptune brushes, which are very, very soft and are really nice for sort of getting quite expressive, sort of washy kinds of looks. So I'm just getting some colour down. I decided to go in with a sort of turquoisey colour at the top, so it was still within the greens-ish, but we had more of a blue tone, so maybe be a little bit of a sky. So that was sort of my thought process behind it. So once I'd got those big washes of colour on, I'm just making sure that the paint hadn't gone through the seam, and actually it hadn't at all. The first page I'd done, there was actually washi tape, so it couldn't really go through, but it hadn't gone through on the next page either. So I'm just getting some more paint, and whilst the first layers were still wet, I'm just putting those stripes of colour just to sort of break it up and make a bit of a pattern. I was going for something that looked like a landscape but was still quite abstract. So we're doing a bit of wet into wet here, and I wasn't worried about the paint doing what it does there. In fact, I wanted the paint to be sort of melding into each other, blooming and sort of mixing together, because I was going for a really washy, abstract kind of a look. So then I thought I'd go in with some different sorts of marks just to see what happened to the different sections. Now I let it dry naturally, and I went into the Wicked Personas book, which is the latest collage book from Maremi Small Art, and I cut out some houses because I wanted to make a little street scene, almost a spooky street scene. And so I'm going in with my Liquitex Professional Matte Medium. I've actually managed to finish a bottle. I'm now on my second bottle of this, so I have obviously been doing a lot of collaging. So I just cut these houses out. Now I didn't cut them out exactly. I chopped some bits off, I chopped some bits up. I do not want to spend hours trying to cut out little tiny bits, but they still look fine. And if I hadn't told you, you probably would never have known, unless you've got the book, of course, then you might have gone in and checked, but if you didn't, then you would never have known that I've cut those little bits off. So I'm putting the matte medium down on the page. A tiny bit of watercolour did come up. You see there, I did actually even tear those 2 little houses apart just to make it easier. So I do whatever it takes to make it easier for me. Yeah, so the watercolour came up a tiny little bit in places, but it was fine because it was nice and dry and I wasn't scrubbing it too much. I'm just sort of mostly going over where the collage is so that I'm not trying to, mess about with that paint underneath too much. Because I wanted to add some Inktense on here, I decided I was going to put a layer of clear gesso. And once again, this actually didn't move the paint, which was quite good. So as well as providing me with a nice sort of surface afterwards, it's also, I think, sealing in that paint as well. So it should now all stay in place nicely. Now here are the Derwent Inktense pencils, and the colours I chose were deep indigo, violet, teal green and tangerine, and I picked those colours because literally they are Halloweeny type colours to me, and they were also colours that were already in the page that I'd started to form. I started with the violet along this line of where the houses were sitting. It didn't go exactly as I wanted, but actually by the end I was quite happy with it. Where it went on to the actual collage, it was a bit too dark for me, and I often find that when I put any soluble pencil down straight onto a project, I end up getting too dark a line, and then I always learn after it's too late, which I should already know by now, that I prefer it when I take the pigment from the tip of the pencil. So I'm trying to only touch where the pigment is. I'm trying not to touch where the wood is. I do go a little bit onto it, I have to admit, especially when my brush is getting a bit wetter, but I try as much as possible to not get too much water into the wood part of the pencil. So I find that applying the colour is a lot easier when I do it this way. So here I decided I was going to maybe create sort of shadows from the different elements. To start with, I was just going to shade underneath, and then I thought, oh no, I want to put some shadows in. So that's what I was doing here. I'm not sure whether I got the vibe correct or not, but it was fun, and I had an awful lot of fun adding in all the different colours to this page. Now normally when I'm adding in my shading with the Inktense or the Stabilo Aall, I stick to one colour, but today I really did have a real play around, and at the end I was really happy with the effect it gave. Now, whenever I add collage to a page, I always feel that adding in stenciling and stamping really helps to combine the two parts together. So I've got this stencil here. I do believe it's a Crafters Workshop one. I can't remember what it's called, unfortunately. It is quite an old stencil. I think I had it in the 6x6 and a 12x12 at one point, but I'll have a little look online and see if I can find it to list it. If not, I'm sure that there are plenty of stencils that would give similar sort of effects. Now, the first colour I started with was the Amsterdam in his Naples yellow red, and I chose it because it was an orange, but it's quite a subtle orange. I don't know whether I would have preferred maybe a darker orange, but that was the one we went with. Now, this little sort of shape, I'm not quite sure what it was, that I put the screen paint through, it sort of worked in places and didn't work in others, but it was quite I thought it had a bit of a Halloweeny, spider's webby kind of vibe to it. And the colour I'm using is Olive Waistcoat, and that's an indigo blue matte acrylic paint. And finally, I wanted to add some more circles, and I wanted to get some lighter tones in. So I wanted to provide a bit of contrast with some titanium white, and this is also from the Amsterdam paint collection. And I just go in with some of the circles just to add a little bit of contrast colour, and these I really did like. Like I said, I also like to add stamping into these projects as well. So I decided, as we've got some white going on in the background with the stenciling, I wanted to add some quite bold black stamping. So I went with this little stamp set from Aall and Create, and it's called Intersecting Circles. I'm pretty sure. I debated whether to stick it onto a block and add big sort of areas of it, but I decided that I would rather add smaller areas because I didn't want to cover too much up. I just wanted a little hint of the stamping in there. And then I really did want to add some pen work in as well. Excuse my head there. And I went in with the Posca in white, and in a little bit I'll go in with some Copic Acrea as well in gold. As I was adding it, I didn't feel like I wanted to go too mad with the pen. To start with, when I was first doing the background, I had thought that I was going to add lots of patterns into it. But once the houses were on the top, I felt that wouldn't really fit. But I did feel like I wanted a little bit of gold. So I'm going in just around some of that stamping, and then I'll add some little dots in to the lines that I did at the top, which I sort of think look a little bit like some form of stylized trees. And as always, I cannot resist some splatters. So I'm going in with the Winsor & Newton white ink. I always start off really gently, and by the end I'm whacking that paintbrush because I like to have some really big splats on there as well. Finally, I wanted some sentiments, so I went with this Halloween sticker set from 2024. It has a few pages of like Halloween clippings, and then it has some people and some hats and things. I mostly got it for the clippings, so I chose a few that I thought went with this page really well. And then that's really the end of the project. So thank you ever so much for watching today. If you have enjoyed this video, do please give it a thumbs up, and if you're able to, if you could hit that hype button as well. It doesn't cost anything and it helps out small creators. If you haven't already subscribed, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button, as well as all subscriptions or comments or all likes are all really helpful to small channels like myself. At the end, you will also see a list of my lovely super supporters who are my YouTube members, and I will also add some information into the description box below, along with a list of all the things that I've used for this project. So until the next time, bye bye.